Delegate.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, sir. This is case number 2018 CA5321NC, Jack Kowalski, etc., et al. Versus Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, starting with the plaintiff. Let's take appearances, please.
Greg Anderson, Nick Whitney on behalf of the Kowalski family.
Ethan Shapiro, Howard Hunter, Pat Crowles, David Hughes on behalf of the defense. We're also joined by Dr. Jenny Dolan today. Thank you.
And Mr. Altenburn, I promised you first up.
And we have made substantial progress this weekend. I sent you earlier this morning a copy that looks like you have on the bench at this point in time. So on the limiting instruction, we had essentially agreed on the language that was in the motion for that. The only thing that needs to be tinkered with is that when it was written, it was going to say last Friday, but it's more than last Friday at this point in time. So it's either earlier in the case or on Friday, September 29th. That's probably how you would begin that. Obviously, if you have any alterations or changes you want to make to it, that's fine.
So Mr. Elegant agrees to the form of this instruction?
Yes, Your Honor, on the state of mind instruction.
So I'm just going to pull this one out. So what day did she testify?
My recollection is it was Friday, September 29th. I checked that on the calendar.
So I'll just say on Friday, September 29th. There we go. So I'll give that one. And you all are close on the next instruction?
Yes, the first paragraph that we have there, other than maybe trying to resolve this, that, or an A, which we've kind of moved around on, I actually have begun to think A in that sentence makes the most sense. But other than that, the first paragraph is fine. Originally, I had suggested a second sentence about what would happen at the end of the case. The other side didn't want that, and I could see why they didn't, so I basically have withdrawn that. They have suggested a couple of other things that would be description of what the instructions might be at the end of the case. And I have essentially the same problem with those that they had with mine. I frankly think that just the first paragraph is what we ought to give.
When you say the second sentence, I assume you don't mean the sentence that starts, although I have determined?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, after the first paragraph, I had suggested a sentence that I have below in Arial that's, you will not be instructed at the end of the case that damages can be awarded to Ms. Kowalski for any stress created by her participation in this lawsuit. They didn't like that, and they suggested, however, plaintiff may recover damages for injuries sustained from an event such as the relapse of November 2010, even if primarily caused by litigation stress. If you find other sources of stress unrelated to litigation substantially caused or contributed to that stress. And I too did not like that sentence. It was later shortened to, and you will be instructed to claims for which stress is relevant in closing instructions. And at this point, I think the concurrent cause instructions will probably cover that. So I don't frankly see the need for any additional sentence in the instruction other than that first paragraph.
Mr. Elegant.
Your Honor, our concern is that, well, I guess I would just say first, as you know, we have a general preference not to have all these different instructions during the plaintiff's case, but I understand there's going to be an instruction on this. So then the question is, what's the wording? And the concern we have with the first paragraph is it tells them, okay, it's not, it's relevant to issues, but then he's stressing the law. It leaves them kind of hanging. And that's why we came with the shorter version of, we'll tell you later. The court will tell you later. And in fact, I think you could do it even shorter than I had there if we looked at the sentence that says, although I have determined this evidence is relevant to issues in this law, in this case, if we just added that you will be instructed on later, comma, or just add the words that you will be instructed on later, and then then you come to any stress to the parties and you give them the general rule. I think the problem with the concurring cause instruction is just not going, unless we craft something different, concurring cause instructions don't refer to stress. I mean, and there's a special instruction being given in the middle of the plaintiff's case on stress. So we just wanted to try to balance that out.
Okay, and so you're suggesting as yet another alternative is in the second sentence of the agreed to portion after in this case, just add what words?
That you will be instructed on later.
I have no objection to that addition.
There we go.
Yeah, I didn't think of that until I was looking at this again this morning when it came in. So, okay, I think we're good. And I don't, Mr. Altman's correct. We've gone back and forth on that because, the this and the that and that A lawsuit. I mean, whether we're talking about this one or the general one.
I wrote it as a generic statement of law rather than one specific to this case. So if we change it to this case, we're going to have to tinker with it maybe in 2 or 3 locations. I think it's better to have a general proposition of law there.
Okay, so are you okay with the word A as opposed to this or that?
I am.
Mr. Elliott?
I think so, Your Honor, yes.
There we go. Love it.
And we have exchanged a relatively complete set of instructions for the end that we're going to try to work on together through this week. So I think we're making good progress on that. I filed, but I don't think we need to discuss this morning, a memo trying to explain my thoughts on the Chapter 11 and the relevance of some of the things that relate to Chapter 39. So.
I don't think I've seen that one. So.
Well, it came in early this morning, so I'm not blaming you.
Clerk hasn't docketed it yet.
Pursuant to your preferences, I didn't file it at 9 o'clock last night. And that's all I have.
Okay, and so when you say that you and Mr. Elliott are well on the way on the actual jury instructions, and I assume that also includes the verdict form?
Does not at this point include the verdict form. My personal preference is to start working on that sometime early next week. By that point, I think we'll have the instructions laid out enough to figure out what that entails. There's duplication of damages and complications in terms of how you do the order of that verdict form. And if we have special interrogatories on Chapter 39 issues, that will, I'm not quite sure where I put that, but I'll think about it.
Let's spend 3 minutes and talk for a moment about exhibits and a table of contents and what's going to be going to the jury, just so we can start thinking about that. I did send the order over the weekend thinking maybe we need to do like an Excel spreadsheet that lists those exhibits that are actually in, that we can print it out and then also have available for the jury in electronic format. But given the number of exhibits that are in this case, as well as the number of exhibits where only certain pages are given, it's going to take the clerk and the parties a long time trying to go through and make sure we've got everything. So I think a table of contents, but have you all started thinking about how we're going to do this?
I don't think we disagree that a table of contents is some type of index is going to be necessary for the jury.
We have one that we're tracking on our side, and we can share it with them and work towards that goal.
It's just, I assume what I've been receiving is a Word table.
Yes.
I really think it needs to move over to an Excel spreadsheet given the length, because I think my experience with Word tables, once you get them too big, they tend to crash on you.
There's no objection to that.
So that's why I think you probably need to move it over to an Excel.
And as to the individual pages on larger ones, court is okay with us referencing then base numbers on the bottom to the extent they're not. Well, I guess they're marked by number in most cases.
I think we should try to use the actual mark number. So like if it's 1032-087. I think that's the number we should use and try to be consistent throughout everything. Ms. Corrales.
Thank you.
Oh,
Were you finished? I do have something, but I didn't know if the court was ready.
unless there's anything else on that particular issue, then yes, I'm finished with that.
Well, Judge, I wanted to address an issue with an exhibit that was admitted on Friday. The court may recall admitting 2608, which was the audio recording between Maya and her mom, and purported to be Kathy Beatty on the recording. And we have confirmed with Kathy Beatty. I listened to it again over the weekend and thought that is not Miss Beatty's voice. So I sent it to Miss Beatty and confirmed that is not Miss Beatty on the recording. And they purported to get it admitted and said it was Miss Beatty on the recording. It is not Miss Beatty, it's Miss Laporte.
But wasn't there a statement at the beginning about it being recorded?
Yes, Your Honor, but what I'm saying, but I want to correct the record. They indicated and stated on the record when they moved it in evidence, and we had the whole discussion of whether or not Miss Beatty had permission. Why was she monitoring these calls? Did she have permission from DCF? What's going to be the evidence on that? There was a whole 30-minute discussion about it. That is not Miss Beatty's voice. She is not the one interrupting the phone call. It is DCF, Miss Laporte. I wanted to bring that to the court's attention because there was a whole discussion about that when the court admitted the recording.
Mr. Anderson.
We played these from Maya Kowalski. She was there at the time. She knows Ms. Beatty's voice at that time, in that context, in that room. She says it's Ms. Beatty. So if they want to cross, if they want to try to say or bring in Ms. Laporte, whatever they want to do, fine. But right now it's an issue of fact, as I see it, and there's no reason to have. I'm not sure what the defense is asking to in this regard. This sounds like a matter of cross-examination. Our witness says that's Beatty. Apparently they have somebody which they can bring in. We welcome the opportunity to cross-examine them that says it's her voice. But the only person so far before this court right now who has heard Ms. Beatty's voice in that context is Maya Kowalski.
What day was this call made?
This is the November 15th call. So there were 3 clips admitted on Thursday.
Judge, I just felt like I had an obligation to bring it to the court's attention because of the whole discussion. If they want to proceed, having been put on notice from our side that that's not Miss Beatty, we're happy to do that. I just did not want to be accused later of not informing the other side that they are mistaken. If they wish to proceed with that assertion, the defense is happy to do that.
Sounds like there's nothing for me to do. Plaintiff's on notice of what the contention from the defense is, and the defense is on notice as to what the plaintiff's contention is.
Understood, Your Honor.
What's next?
Your Honor, next we'd like to discuss the exhibits that we'd like to admit before the testimony this morning. And Your Honor should have a copy of our list.
I have it.
All right.
Lots of ends on it, but
Yeah.
in fact, I don't see one why.
I don't see a why.
Why doesn't this surprise me?
2003.
Pretty funny, Mr. Anderson.
Maybe because what they want to put in, Judge.
Exhibit 2003 is the Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital summary of the Florida Patient's Bill of Rights and Responsibilities produced to the plaintiffs during the pendency action, so relevant and existing at the time.
It's standards.
Okay. Is this one already in?
It is none of
No.
these I'm going to discuss with you are already in.
Is the Bill of Rights already in?
A version of the Bill of Rights is in, but this is a different version of the Bill of Rights.
When you say a different version, are we talking about different typeset or different language?
Different language, different typeset, different format, all of the above.
Essentially, so this one is just a list, and the other one is presented in like a brochure form with color and all of that. This one is just a list of what their rights are.
Judges,
And it says Johns Hopkins across the top.
Let me just see it, and then Ms. Corrales, you can certainly give me your position. Ms. Crows, what's your position?
Judge, it's duplicative. I mean, it's another Bill of Rights summary. I don't understand why that would be in.
What the plaintiff says is the language is different in some respects than what's already in evidence.
Well, then is it a different date that was in effect? I mean, why are they putting in two different Bill of Rights? One would be effective during her stay.
They have multiple versions internally. We can't explain that, but the language is different, and the other one that they want to use essentially is more friendly to their position.
We surmise one is internal or an original, and then the other one was, again, turned into something that's part of the admissions package, and it's got 4 colors and all that.
Is 2003, and I see 001. How many pages is this?
Two. Go to the second page.
2 pages.
Is 2003-001 and 002 the Bill of Rights that was in effect in October of 2016 through January of 2017?
Yes, Your Honor. At the bottom of the second page, you'll see a date revised December 1st, 2015. It was in effect.
Anything else, Ms. Cross?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, I will admit 2003. On the statement that it is somewhat different, contains language that's different than what's already in evidence.
Yes, Your Honor. Next is 2045, if you could pull that up, please. Again, this is an internal Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital document and party admission, and it is, how many pages is it? 28 pages, setting forth the rights. So it expands on the language in the other documents. It includes statements of witnesses in this case, like Brigitte Mueller, the patient safety coordinator, if you go to the next page. Next page.
Is this handed to the families as they come in, if they are admitted?
Yes, or there's brochures in the lobby to this effect. We're not sure exactly how it's delivered. It's on the website as well.
Keep going, please.
There's the statement by Brigitte Mueller, who has been the opponent in this case.
Ms. Crowe-Ellis.
Well, Your Honor, these are not evidence of standard of care. It seems duplicative of what's already been admitted. And I don't know if somebody's going to testify that they were handed this when they came into the hospital.
Well, it is a statement by the defendant, and it does appear relevant to the court, so I will go ahead and overrule the relevance objection and admit 2045. What's next?
Next, Your Honor, is 2046. Again, a slightly different version. This is more akin to the one that was admitted before this morning. Now, the difference is this one has numbers and it's more readable.
Okay.
Judge,
I'm more concerned about text differences. Is there a text difference?
I'd like to come back to this one.
Come back, because if
Judge, I think
it's
it's
the same,
I think it's included in 20045.
In that case,
Well, I was going to double check, but I believe when I looked at them last night, that one was included in here.
our apologies.
We'll come back to it. Okay.
what's next?
2060 are the mortality tables.
Judge, our objection was they gave us 60 pages. They didn't tell us which page they're putting in. Surely they're not planning on putting in over 60 pages of, maybe they are, but that was our objection. What pages do you want to use? We're happy to look at it.
Which tables are you going to seek to use?
And the reason we put it all in was completeness. We didn't want them objecting. We didn't put the whole thing in. Judge, if you flip through these, you'll see they are separated out by male, female.
I've seen mortality tables many, many times. I'm asking you, which one or ones do you wish to use?
Non-Hispanic, white.
No, Judge, a page.
Just, yeah. What page number?
I can't believe that this is necessary for today.
Yeah,
If they
right,
want to
that's
give us their page numbers, we'll be happy to look at
We'll
it.
carry it
Judge.
over tomorrow, we'll address the
Yeah.
page numbers.
Thank you.
Next, Your Honor, is 2175. These are text messages produced to us between two of the involved physicians. Your Honor has seen these on several occasions before. There was a motion to eliminate filed before the last trial in which they tried to exclude these. The court ruled in our favor in that issue. Again, it's an exchange between Dr. Laura Vos and Dr. Tepa Sanchez, two of the critical care physicians that were involved with Maya's case during the admission.
Okay, but what am I physically looking at right here?
You're looking at the text messages as they were produced to us with the redactions. Are you on 2175?
This doesn't look like a text message, this looks like a call log.
It's 2175, page 1.
Maybe a voicemail message.
It's next page, Judge.
There we start with the text message.
003.
Keep going. There we go. Can you zoom in?
And so who's in the green again?
We need to continue the next page.
No, who's in the green and who's in the blue?
Your Honor, I believe Dr. Tepa Sanchez is in the blue. We have a demonstrative aid that clarifies this issue.
And Dr. Vos, who's the other? Those are the two in the conversation.
Okay, and what page or pages of this document are you seeking to use?
This page here, Your Honor, and then this
So,
page.
so when you say this page, let's,
3,
page 3,
yes, Your Honor, and page 4.
okay, anything else?
I don't believe so. Unless they want for completeness, I mean,
The documentation of exactly when and where is in with it.
kind of metadata is contained on that additional pages.
Judge, we object to page 4. These
Can we go back to
text
4, please?
text messages, first of all, have no relevance to any of the claims currently before this jury. They don't go to any of the allegations regarding any communication with the plaintiffs. There's no indication that the plaintiffs ever knew about these text messages until well into this litigation. They don't go to battery, they don't go to negligence, they don't go to breaches of standard of care. These are text messages months after either of these doctors had any contact with any of the Kowalskis. And so we object to them being admitted, we object to testimony regarding them.
I mean, I, over the weekend, overruled the,
Well, we were gonna ask to revisit that with you, Judge, actually.
okay, well, I'm gonna let in pages 3 and 4. So I guess the question is, do you want the balance of the document or just pages?
No, I think this
I guess
shows the
pages
time
2
and date of them on the right. The rest would be just a duplication of the same messages, Judge.
So it's 2, 3, and 4, Mr. Whitney?
2, 3, and 4, Your Honor. Yes, thank you.
Judge, we object to relevance.
Okay, I'm gonna receive pages 2, 3, and 4 of Exhibit 2060.
Judge, can we inquire
Oh,
of the court?
sorry. I apologize, 2175.
Can we inquire of the court as to the relevance of these text messages done in January? We honestly don't understand the relevance to.
Your Honor, Maya in that hospital was treated like property and dehumanized, and these confirm that. They refer to her, rather than her name, as Ketamine Girl.
And her treatment.
They refer to the involvement of Sally Smith earlier on. Parent agency is an issue in this case. They refer to the attitude towards the mother and the intentional infliction of emotional distress. All of these things are materially relevant to this lawsuit.
The methodology of grief counseling is also in there.
Judge, we disagree that that's relevant to any of the issues in this case.
I see that these text messages are highly relevant in this case, and I'm going to overrule the request not to admit the text messages. What's next?
Your Honor, I'd like to skip down to the second page if we could.
To the second page?
Yes, of our exhibit list for today. And focus for a moment on 2529-055. If you could pull that up, please. This is a photograph of Maya Kowalski with a friend and fellow patient of Dr. Cantu's while in Mexico. She's been questioned about this witness in depositions, and we'd like to use it during Maya's testimony this morning and this afternoon.
Well, what relevance does this other person have, and why are we invading that person's privacy?
Well, she's gone, Judge. She passed. The witness passed.
Well, that family's privacy.
And she was an adult at the time, I believe. Was she over 18 at the time? So, Judge, the relevancy is this is another patient for the treatment. It was Maya's friend there, and the mothers were friends as well, and that's indicated there. You can see that this patient has CRPS of a pretty amazing degree, and we can show you in the next photo we're moving in.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Oh, with the leg. Okay, so there's a companion photo that is in evidence, Judge, and we just found this with Ms. Maya Kowalski yesterday. She didn't know she had this one, and
This has been on our list.
oh, it has been on our list. We just forgot to move it in. All right. So there you go. And if you compare the two photographs, you'll see that that the friend here has significant CRPS as identified by the lesions on the leg, and Maya Kowalski can testify to the degree she has. And the important thing is,
You already have photos at this time of Maya Kowalski's CRPS, so why are we putting in this other photo? What relevance does this other person have in this case?
the relevance is that she has advanced CRPS and is still capable of smiling and appearing as though she's not in, quote, ultimate pain, despite the fact that she has this debilitating disease, as does Maya Kowalski. And it also goes to demonstrate the atmosphere and the care that was taken at the hospital during the ketamine infusions in Mexico. And so
Yeah, we're gonna have to get into all of this.
Judge, it's our understanding that this young lady died under Dr. Cantu's care, but beyond, so that will have to be discussed if this comes up. But beyond that, who's testifying that this young woman in the photo with Maya has CRPS? There's no doctor that's coming in. It's a remote issue. It's not relevant. There's already pictures, several, at least 3, I believe, at least 2 I know of, that of Maya while she's under Dr. Cantu's care, of her smiling and in the wheelchair. So it's,
This photo, which is 2529-055, is not appropriate. It's going to introduce other issues that are collateral to this lawsuit, and it would be cumulative with respect to photos of Maya Kowalski at the time that she was with Dr. Cantu in Mexico. What's next?
2583-007 and 008. This is a birthday card written by Beata Kowalski on or around December 10th, 2016, that the Kowalskis attempted to get to Maya and was intercepted by the hospital and never delivered. And Maya can authenticate it as her mother's writing.
Ms. Corrales. I can't see the page 8.
I'm sorry, Judge.
2583-007 and 008.
Yeah. Judge, here it is. Sorry, I was looking for my copy of it. We object that it's hearsay. We object that there's no testimony that this was intercepted by the hospital. Where's the foundation for that? Those are our objections.
On the hearsay.
It's not offered for the truth of the matter, it's offered for notice as to this existence of this birthday card.
And most
Judge,
important, Judge,
this-
the fact is there are a number of these items that were intercepted by Ms. Beatty or someone else at the hospital, and we can demonstrate that. And Maya Kowalski can testify to learning later about these. And so this goes to the standard of care or lack of standard of care in terms of how they treated Maya Kowalski at the time. And we can show several different items that were sent to go to Maya Kowalski, were intercepted, and never received. Now, we only have a few because we only retrieved a few, but the court will see as the testimony goes on that this is one of a series of things that goes towards their plan, intent, motive, and generally the care that Maya received there.
Judge, first of all, this interception issue, was it by DCF? There's no testimony to substantiate, and I don't know how Maya would know who intercepted them if she didn't get them. And that's going to leave another implication with this jury that is not substantiated, and again, blur the lines between DCF and Johns Hopkins.
How is the plaintiff going to get the testimony that this card was actually transmitted to the hospital?
Jack Kowalski will be on the stand this morning and can testify that he delivered this card to the hospital.
Okay.
We only have a copy because the audit took a photograph before it was delivered to the hospital. If they want to bring in someone to say that there's DCF personnel in the hospital intercepting birthday cards, so be it. But the hospital had possession of this card.
Not only that, Judge, like I said, we can demonstrate that Ms. Beatty did this on other occasions. And so this would go towards that.
Well, how about who did Mr. Kowalski provide this card to? Just saying the hospital is probably not good enough. Who did he give it to?
Coming in, I believe he had to give everything to Ms. May we?
Yes.
Mr. Kowalski.
He's right there.
Chris.
Are we able to move on to the next one?
Yes, Your Honor.
2597-015, is that the next one?
Yes, Your Honor.
Judge, you've already ruled on this. They previously attempted to get it in when they put in the package of photos. Number 15 was specifically denied.
This is a different than the photos that were excluded. This is a photograph in the room, and Maya Kowalski will testify to these were the cameras in her various rooms.
Judge, this is exactly the photo that they tried to admit the other day. It's part of 2597. You specifically did not admit number 15 along with the other photos of the cameras. It's the exact same argument they made.
It looks very similar to something that I've seen and precluded.
Well, Your Honor, then we'd ask you to reconsider because Maya will testify that these cameras existed in her various rooms that she was moved around in. So it's relevant to how she was observed in this hospital.
And considering the fact that they have made a big deal about Maya Kowalski self-harm by scratching herself, and these lesions were not lesions, they were scratches. The issue becomes if you had a camera in there and you were so concerned about this child's health or that she was faking it or that, to use Sally Smith's words, this was all a charade, one would think it'd be relevant and material that they had the ability to observe her anytime they wanted in these rooms. And in fact, the court's aware they did so for a 48-hour stint.
Is this the EEG room where she was secretly videotaped?
No, Judge, this is her hospital room, and that's why it's important. they had the ability to observe Maya at all times. And the court will see as the testimony comes on. And again, this is a 90.105. I mean, if we don't demonstrate through the course of our case that they were saying that Maya did things that she never did, we should be able to ask them, well, you had, in fact, we're going to ask them, you had camera phones, phone cameras rather, where's the evidence? If this is such a big deal, why isn't it in the medical records? Why didn't you take any pictures? Why didn't you, obviously you were concerned there, put her in a room where you could watch her to make sure she didn't inflict self-harm? Apparently, they did this, although I don't think it's for self-harm. So this is relevant material. It can be stricken if we don't lay the proper predicate as time goes on. But right now, we need Maya Kowalski to identify this. We want to move it into evidence and then subject to under 90.105.
It's the exact same argument they made when they tried to put this exact same photo in the other day. They want to leave an implication that we had film that we're not showing the jury. There's no evidence of that. This is highly prejudicial to the defense, and there's no evidence that there, in fact, was any video or any recording done.
I'm going to stick with my original ruling. I'm going to preclude the admission of 2597-015. Now let's go back to 2583-007 and 008. Who did we give?
Who'd you give the card, this birthday card to?
The birthday card would have been to Kathy Beatty.
And you're going to testify under oath you
Yes.
handed it to Kathy
Yes, Your
Beatty?
Honor.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, okay. I mean, we have documentation evidence to the contrary. If he wants to take the stand on that, full disclosure, we have an email from Beata Kowalski emailing this card to Charlotte Laporte at DCF. But if Mr. Kowalski wants to take the stand and testify to the contrary, we're happy to
How could, maybe it was a picture of the card, but the actual physical card.
Right.
Okay. Well, we have the email. The email chain regarding this card was from Beata Kowalski to Charlotte Laporte at DCF looking for clearance on that card.
Yeah, again, 2 forms of delivery as the court spotted.
Yeah. Assuming I'm going to get under oath testimony that he handed this card to Miss Beatty,
I wrote it down.
okay, then I will admit 2583-007 and 008. What's next?
Do you need Mr. Kowalski to leave at this point, Your Honor, or may you stay in?
He's a party. He can stay if he wishes. If he wants to go outside, that's fine too.
All right, Your Honor, we have just a few minutes, and
you can
we have
bring them on.
3 exhibits we need to discuss, if we can get to them, please. I'd like to begin with 2116. The court has seen these text messages. The
I'm
last
sorry,
time-
I don't have that on my list. 2116?
2116 is these text messages between Dr. Sally Smith and Paula Dees. Where's the redacted?
It's down under the carryover exhibit portion of this list.
That wasn't on my,
The reason that
that
we're
wasn't
bringing this up
on the
again-
exhibit list I got, Judge.
It's been addressed previously. The last time the issue was with redactions. We wanted to show the court that the redactions have been made, show the defense the redactions have been made, and have it admitted now that the redactions have been made.
Judge, I don't know why, if I could have a moment to look at them, and I don't know why this is essential for either of these witnesses, since they're not party to any of these texts.
They put Maya in a room and videotaped her for 48 hours.
Have you previously given the redactions to
Yes, Your Honor.
when?
Judge, I'm not saying they haven't, but my point is this. We're going to be objecting if they're trying to use these exhibits with either Jack Kowalski or Maya Kowalski. They're not party to these texts. They're not aware of these texts at the time they're happening. So I fail to see why they're relevant to any of today's proceedings. And I just didn't look at them again because I didn't have them on my list, to be honest.
Maya's going to be testifying about what she was told or not told about why she's been put in a room for 48 hours. And these texts establish the chain of events leading Paula Dees and Sally Smith to decide to put her under video surveillance.
Is Maya Kowalski going to testify that she saw any of these texts, or told about any of these texts?
Not at the time.
Then why are we using these texts with Maya Kowalski's testimony?
It's our understanding, if, as a party admission, and they are admitted, once in evidence, an exhibit may be used with any witness for any purpose relevant to the suit.
Judge, they want to ask Maya Kowalski questions about things which she didn't know about just to put it in front of the jury is improper. To request that a witness simply, again, read a document that they're not part of.
How many pages is this document?
How what?
How many pages is this document?
10 pages.
Ms. Crowell, you might want to take a gander at it.
And I'm just told we provided these in redacted form on October 3rd. We've also provided the demonstrative aid that we would use that is just the text messages.
Judge, again, I would object to them using a demonstrative aid with this witness or Mr. Kowalski for something that they were not part of. That's not a demonstrative aid, first of all. We object to them putting up what's in evidence, and calling it a demonstrative aid doesn't make it a demonstrative aid. And secondly, neither of these witnesses have any knowledge about any of these texts until well into the litigation. So it's improper examination of the witness rather than standing up and objecting at the time, Judge, since they've forecast what they intended to do.
Well, that's a little bit different than the issue of whether it should be admitted.
I understand, Judge. I'm sorry, I'm looking for my copy. And
80318,
I,
Your Honor.
While Ms. Crowell is trying to find that, can we go to the next one?
Yes, Your Honor. 2661. It's a video, Your Honor, of Maya Kowalski in her wheelchair at home. September 2015. Go ahead. Your Honor, this shows her condition at the time. Maya Kowalski will testify. Obviously, she's in the wheelchair. She'll additionally testify to this being reflective of her physical condition because she's not using the pedals on the piano because of her dystonia.
Ms. Crowell or Mr. Shapiro?
Yeah, that's fine. Your Honor, this is undated, but we don't see what this is probative to. They have multiple videos, cameras, photographs, and evidence. It's undated. It's not probative to any issue in the case.
I'm going to overrule the relevance objection and admit 2661. What's next?
I'm sorry, what was the date again of that exhibit, please?
They contended September of 2015.
Yes, I can get you the exact date. I think that's been provided previously, but I'll get it to you. Next, Your Honor, is 2666. It's October 4th, 2015 video of Maya Kowalski at home on the bathroom or kitchen floor. And it's showing the symptoms of CRPS, the involuntary spasms and the dystonia that's developing.
Where your tummy, when I touch your tummy, that feels good, right?
We object to the hearsay, Your Honor.
And who's dating?
And the date, we don't have an authentication on the date either.
October 4th, 2015.
Well, who's?
What about the Beata Kowalski's statements?
Not, and to the extent anybody can make them out, it's certainly not for the truth of the matter asserted in any way. This is simply through the course of this to find out the response. And then as the guardian, parent and guardian of Maya Kowalski, again, we believe that this is an 803 3, because she is the guardian at that time, determining what the physical condition of Maya Kowalski was at that time. And Maya Kowalski can testify to that and verify as necessary.
Judge, to revisit the date, there's nothing on this video that says the date. So for them just saying a date doesn't make it evidentiary, the date.
Is there going to be testimony as to the date?
I think we've got metadata that shows what the date is, but I will double check that. And I don't think, if we don't have the metadata, and I'm sorry, Judge, there's a lot of exhibits, I know that we can identify it generally to this period of time, to it being the early mid-fall of 2015 with Ms. Kowalski. She definitely remembers that it was at that point, before she had gone to Mexico, and after the point where she had been treated by Dr. Kirkpatrick.
I don't believe Beata Kowalski's statements really are hearsay in the sense that they're being used to prove the truth of the matter asserted. But even if they were, it does seem that 90.803 parent 4 would apply because Beata is asking Maya about her physical condition, which then will be relayed to medical providers. So in either event, I do think it would come in. So the court will admit 2666, yes, inclusive of the audio. So that takes
If we could just go back to
2116. Is that the last one?
That's the last one we need to
Because
discuss.
it's past 9 o'clock at this point. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Judge, I've found my copy of 2116. And so we have no objection.
Then
with the
2116 comes in.
redacted version.
Oh, did you say you have no objection? Or?
Right, we would object to the use of this with either of the witnesses, Judge. I guess we'll have to do that timely, but when they do it. But again, they're not part and parcel to these communications, so
So the
why
court-
they would be allowed to testify as to them.
The court receives 2116. Anything else before we bring in the jury?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, and our plan is Jack Kowalski first. How long is he going to be on the stand?
I hope no more than 10 minutes. I only have a few questions, so to speak. That's a famous phrase in this courtroom now.
Okay, let's bring in the jury.
All rise, jurors entering.
Okay, please be seated. Happy Monday. Did y'all have a good weekend? Yes. Glad to hear that. I want to confirm that since you were last with us, that you did not discuss this case amongst yourselves, you did no investigation, and you received no information. Is that all correct? Correct. And has anyone approached you since the last time you were with us about this case? No. Okay. And have you seen any media coverage since the last time you were with us about this case? No. Okay. Mr. Anderson, your next witness, please.
Plaintiff's called Jack Kowalski.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name for the record, please.
Jack Kowalski.
Mr. Mr. Kowalski, were you here this past Thursday when the deposition of Kathy Beatty was played concerning certain alleged conversations?
I was.
Can you tell the jury whether you ever gave Kathy Beatty permission in any way to touch your child,
Absolutely not.
undress your child,
No.
photograph your child,
No.
put Maya on her lap,
No.
hug your child,
No.
kiss your child,
No.
say anything to your child in any way having to do with sex
No.
Objection.
or video?
Objection, move to strike out.
No.
Other than the transfer form in evidence to Nemours for Munchausen by proxy as the reason, did Johns Hopkins ever present you with any other attempts to transfer Maya out of there?
I didn't understand it. Could you repeat that?
Was the Nemours transfer form the only one you saw
I had never seen a transfer form.
from Nemours?
I did not. at
You
that
did not
time.
see it?
No.
And did you ever have any discussions with Kathy Beatty having anything to do with her, quote, providing Maya comfort?
No.
And at any point, Mr. Kowalski, was it ever brought to your attention that there was an ongoing plan to separate you and Mrs. Kowalski and Kyle Kowalski from Maya Kowalski through adoption or foster care?
Objection, mischaracterization, foundation.
I'm going to say that you need to rephrase.
Sure. What, if anything, did Johns Hopkins, anyone there, ever tell you about in early November of 2016 a plan or goal of transferring Maya into foster care?
I was not aware of that.
Show, if we could, in evidence, 1001-3795. And Mr. Kowalski, will you note the date there under the psychological progress note? What is the date? It's in the middle of the page.
Oh, in the middle, I'm sorry. 11/2 of 2016.
So how long then after your admission, or Maya's admission, on October 7th of 2016 was this memo? How many weeks?
No, that's almost a month. Pretty close to it.
Can we see the next page? 3796. If we can enlarge. There at the top, if you'd please review what has been marked into evidence. Now, did Dr. Katzenstein or anyone at Johns Hopkins inform you that within a month there was a plan to transfer your daughter into, quote, therapeutic foster care setting?
Objection, mischaracterization, foundation.
Sustained.
Were you ever made aware of what is stated in the interval history here?
Same objection.
Overruled.
No, I was not.
When various things, strike it. Did you make notes on or during the time of Maya's stay there, in which you documented some of the things happening?
I did.
Do you remember every single one of them, or specifically?
There's quite a bit of things, so it'd be kind of hard to.
Would it refresh your recollection to see a note from that time?
That'd be great.
Your Honor, for the record, this is 2380.
We're going to refresh his recollection. We're going to only show it to him and not the
Right.
jury. Okay, now it can be put up.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. For the record, this is 2380-013. May I approach? Or do you already have a copy of this?
I do not have it with me.
Can I borrow your copy?
Can you take it down for a second? Is this in evidence?
No, Your Honor, this is simply to refresh. This is marked for ID.
Mr. Reyes, for whatever, I guess how you two have split this up, I just saw it up on the gallery TV and I have turned that off, so I'm gonna need you to switch over to your table left and then run it that way. I'm sorry, we'll have to reset it. I can't have it go up to the gallery monitor.
May it please the court?
Right, but it's gonna take Mr. Reyes a moment to change out some cables.
May it please the court? I continue. Mr. Kowalski, will you please review 2380-013?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection as to what notes you made and what you were told at the time about Maya Kowalski's treatment?
Yes, sir.
Oh, and what you observed?
Yes.
Maya Kowalski's treatment? What is the first point there that was of concern regarding Ms. Beatty's?
I just took it down. If it's being used to refresh his recollection,
I understand.
so I just took it down.
I understand, Your Honor.
Okay, you can continue.
What, if anything, did Ms. Beatty tell Maya about Beata, your wife, and mental treatment?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Overruled.
I remember one time I came in there and Maya asked me, she asked if Mom was in a mental hospital, and I asked her why would you come up with that, and she stated that the social worker Kathy Beatty told Maya that her mom's getting mental treatment. I was outraged.
Was that true in any way, shape, or form?
No,
at that time?
no, it was not.
And what, if anything, did you learn as to Ms. Beatty's involvement with Maya about comforting her?
There was more than one time. She states that, Maya, when I say she, Maya stated that Kathy Beatty would place Maya on her lap, stroke her hair. There was a time she said, I know I'm not your mother, but I can be. She kissed her on the cheek. Maya was not acceptable of having that done. It was very disturbing to hear this. And
What, if anything, did you learn about Kathy Beatty's behavior during supervised phone calls?
Maya would state, while speaking with her mom, that was a special time for both of them to get to talk to each other. Kathy Beatty be supervising it. She would have her phone on the bed. And while Mom and Maya were talking about different things, Kathy Beatty be rolling her eyes or making facial expressions. Very, very destructive, for Maya to pay attention to Mom.
What, if anything, what emotions or fears did Maya have concerning retaliation from Ms. Beatty in court proceedings, or because of court proceedings?
Object speculation.
Overruled.
Maya stated she was extremely scared to mention a lot of things. She was worried that she would not be able to go to the courthouse or talk with the judge on the phone. So she was very worried to say certain things because she was worried about Kathy interfering with her chance to talk to the judge on the phone.
What, if anything, did Ms. Beatty and/or the nurses attending your daughter tell her about her illness, as to whether it was physical or psychological?
Object was speculation and compound.
What, if anything, did she relate the nurses were telling her about her symptoms and her illness?
Most of them said that it was all in Maya's head, and I'm sure she'll testify to that.
Now, upon being told this, did you relate this to your wife?
Yes, I did.
And what, if anything, was her reaction?
The same as mine. Very upset.
As you came home and told her about more and more of these things, describe for the jury how she was reacting.
Well, like any mother would, to hear something like that going on and it's not true, she was outraged. And there was nothing she could do about it.
Now, at or about the time it occurred, January 6, 2017, did you make notes concerning the preparation, if you will, of Maya for her court appearing that day?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember everything about that, or would you need?
I remember a lot of what I wrote down. Yes.
All right. Do you need your recollection refreshed, or can you just tell them?
I'll try to go from my memory.
Go ahead. Tell them what you understood was done to your daughter immediately before going to the courthouse.
Maya was finally coming to the courthouse for the first time.
And was this important to her?
Extremely important. She was looking forward to this day. She was going to go to the courthouse and then also be evaluated by Dr. Duncan, and then I believe a doctor's evaluation from Dr. Hanna after that. Prior to leaving the hospital, the social worker, Kathy Beatty, stated that Maya needs to strip down and she has to take pictures of my daughter. Maya was not agreeable on that. She said, if you do not get the pictures, you are not going to court. Maya cried. Another nurse came in to assist the social worker, took the pictures of Maya.
Do you recall, immediately before we started here, seeing a birthday card, and for the record, Judge, it is 2583-007 and 008, written by Beata Kowalski to Maya Kowalski?
Yes, I remember that card.
And can you tell the court and the jury how that was delivered? Who did you deliver it to?
Well, first of all, I remember that card I have the memory of that card because I remember Beata. She put lipstick on her lips and she kissed the card to put the lip or lip marks on the card for her. I did bring that card. At that time, I brought it to Kathy Beatty. Prior to that, all the stuff went to the CPS or whoever it was. But at that time, that's later on, Kathy Beatty was doing the scheduling for the visitations and that.
So who did you hand it to?
Kathy Beatty.
Did you learn later whether your daughter had actually ever received that card?
She did not.
May we publish, Your Honor?
It's in evidence, right? Go ahead and publish.
Like I said, I remember her kissing this card.
All right. Now, if we could, let me ask you whether you ever learned from Dr. Vos, Dr. Tepa Sanchez, Kathy Beatty, or really from any other doctor or nurse there, whether they had given Maya an internal nickname?
I heard of one.
We'd like to publish 2175 in evidence, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Yeah, just objection in terms of the time frame based on the proffer from earlier.
Understood.
When did you first learn of it?
After she was released.
We publish, I think it's 03 and 04. All right. If you could review that for us, Mr. Kowalski.
Very top one.
Mm-hmm.
Ketamine girl.
Did they ever confront you and tell you that they thought your wife taking herself out of the picture in some form would be the best thing for Maya?
Object to the objective statement from Morris.
Any doctor or nurse during this period of time at Johns Hopkins?
Same objection.
No, the only time Kathy Beatty one time asked me if I ever considered divorcing my wife. It was just a weird situation, and I said no. And I said, why would you ask that? And she walked away.
Were you aware that Ms. Vos had another mother do the same thing, apparently commit suicide in this situation?
Objection, foundation, speculation.
Sustained.
What, if anything, did you learn during this time that Ms. Vos had knowledge of a prior incident?
Same objection.
Do you know?
I didn't know at that time, no.
And Beata taking her own life, was this the right thing for Maya? It states there.
There's no right thing. There's no.
But the basis of this conversation was never conveyed to you?
No.
Your witness.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Kowalski.
Good morning.
Just to make sure I understand your testimony about the transfer, your testimony is that you never saw the transfer forms?
I did not.
So the rejection of transfer was made by your wife?
The rejection of the transfer was made after we read the codes and found out it was not for CRPS, it was for conversion disorder or Munchausen.
The jury will see the codes again, but if I understand your testimony, even though Nemours Children's Hospital recommended this transfer was in the best interest of Maya, and even though all Children's Hospital...
Objection. The predicate stating facts. Let me get to your question.
Sustained.
Okay. Even though the transfer was recommended in the best interest of Maya. Cross-examination, Your Honor.
Yeah, that's fine, but
Okay. Sustained.
Okay. The rejection was made by Beata because she did not like the way it was framed about her, correct?
With that code, yes. because that didn't happen. So she was not going to accept that code on there. She would admit guilt.
She was not asked to sign a statement of guilt, Mr. Kowalski, was she?
If you sign that form and that's on there, you're agreeing with that diagnosis, with that code on there. So no, she would not agree on that.
Even though the transfer was recommended as medically necessary for Maya, correct?
Sustained.
Okay. Well, let me ask you about the questions about medical foster. You were aware that that was a DCF consideration being made, correct?
I did not know about that.
Okay. You were not aware that the question about whether medical foster was being made, you weren't made aware of that at the time?
Mr. Anderson, you got to let the question be asked.
I understand.
Okay. And then just only legal basis. Mr. Shapiro, what's your question?
Okay. Did your lawyers ever discuss with you whether a DCF recommended medical foster was being contemplated?
Objection calls for attorney-client privilege. Communications.
Sustained.
I'll re-ask it, Your Honor. You were never made aware during the course of Maya's treatment that there was a DCF consideration for medical foster. Is that right?
Not that I was aware of until just recently.
The talking a little bit more about Kathy Beatty, you testified earlier to this jury that you were upset that the caregivers at All Children's were being cold to your daughter. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And in this situation, you heard Miss Betty, by video, testify that she was trying to provide comfort to your daughter when she found out that DCF was not going to release her on Christmas. Is that right?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
You were here when Miss Betty testified by video.
Yes.
That the reason she was trying to comfort your daughter was because she found out that the court and DCF were not going to allow her to be released by Christmas. You heard that testimony, correct?
That's what she said.
Okay. She testified she was trying to provide comfort for your daughter after hearing that emotionally devastating news. True?
She does not have the right to comfort a girl and kiss her on the cheek and stroke her hair. I'm sorry.
You knew that Miss Betty also brought your child to the chapel to pray?
Yes, I found out about that.
Well, you certainly wanted your daughter to receive communion, true?
Not by Kathy Beatty.
Well, let me ask you about that. Is it fair to say that you never personally witnessed Miss Betty say anything inappropriate to Maya?
No, I didn't.
I'm correct. You never witnessed Miss Betty say anything inappropriate to Maya, correct?
I never witnessed, no.
Okay. The supervision of the phone calls that you spoke about earlier, you agreed, do you not, that your wife, Beata, was making statements about Maya's medical care that were not in Maya's best interest, true?
Objection.
Legal basis.
Assumes facts not in evidence and assumes those facts.
Overruled.
Say that question again.
Sure. During the period of time where your wife was calling Maya, she was calling and demanding medical treatments, and you yourself did not agree with your wife doing that, correct?
Not all the time, and my wife had the right to question medical. We still had our parent rights.
You actually told your wife to knock it off.
That was after I was told to leave the hospital.
Mr. Kowalski, my question to you, yes or no, you had told your wife to knock it off when she was calling the hospital.
Let me finish where that was, because you're taking it and putting it somewhere else. That was the day that I had to walk out of your hospital, and I was told my daughter is not under my custody anymore. I drove all the way home from St. Pete. I caught myself doing 15 miles an hour driving on I-75. I was so upset. And when I got home, my wife was on the phone talking to the nurse at the hospital. And that's why I told her to knock it off. So that's where that was. So don't put it somewhere else.
But you also told your wife to stop calling the hospital and demanding treatment even after that point, true?
That was during that time. That was that recording.
With regard to the photographs, Mr. Kowalski, you did not find out about those photographs until after Beata passed away, true?
That I didn't see the photographs. That's true.
Okay. And Beata didn't see the photographs either before she passed away,
No.
did she? You were unaware of the photographs at the time Beata passed away, true?
Say that question again. I'm sorry.
You were unaware of the photographs before Beata passed away.
I believe that's true.
One moment, Your Honor. I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you.
Hold on, Mr. Kowalski. Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Kowalski, DCF never told you anything about any plans to transfer your daughter out of your care.
No.
Did you call the insurance company to confirm those codes, the ones that were on the Nemours form?
Yes, I did.
Was there a place on that form, although it's in evidence, to see where you had to sign it as a parent in order to effect the transfer?
The transfer form, after I finally seen it, yes, there is a.
And when you walked in, Miss Beatty wouldn't talk to you much at all about what she was doing or anything, would she?
No.
It kind of went dark when you were there.
Yes.
And so during this period of time when you had your daughter taken from you in this first week without any authority whatsoever, what was the stress level between you and your wife?
What would you imagine? It was extremely high.
And during this period of time, can you tell the jury whether you and Beata maintained, by court order, the right to participate and direct Maya's health care?
That is correct.
If we could bring up Trial Exhibit 2003-001, the All Children's Health System Summary of Patients' Bill of Rights. And I'll focus you down to the sixth one. A patient has a right to be given
By the health care provider?
right? Mm-hmm. And the next one, to the hospital guarantee you have the right to refuse treatments?
That is correct.
Anything further, Mr. Shapiro?
Just two questions, Your Honor. If we could put back up that trial exhibit 2003-001. Well, just in the interest of time, Mr. Kowalski, you saw it said, a patient has the right to refuse any treatment except otherwise provided by law, correct?
Yes.
And you were aware, because you had your own attorney as well, there were multiple orders from DCF governing what treatment your daughter could get, true?
Say that question again.
You were aware because you had lawyers appearing before you, before the DCF tribunal, that there were multiple orders governing patient care, true?
Yeah, but we tried to leave there prior to all the legal.
Well, we'll get back into that later, sir, but let me just ask you this about the transfer. Did you ever go to either All Children's or Nemours and say, I agree to the transfer, but I disagree with one of the codes? Did you ever do that?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, members of the jury, do any of you have questions? Okay. Mr. Kowalski, the jury has a question. You said you did not see the photos we were just discussing. Did you have the opportunity to hear about them, perhaps from Maya, as an example?
At that time, before I seen them, yes, I was advised around that rate shortly after that, yes.
Anything further from the plaintiff?
No, Your Honor, the witnesses, may the witness not be excused, but
Nothing further.
Okay, you may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, members of the jury, in a moment, we're going to take a break. I should have done this before Mr. Kowalski testified. There's 2 instructions I need to give you. I'll give you these 2 instructions and then we'll take a short break. On Friday, September 29th, 2023, you heard the testimony of Mrs. Meg Boland. She is the woman who testified by Zoom from North Carolina. During her testimony, a Facebook text message that she received on November 17th, 2016 from Beata Kowalski was introduced into evidence. That text message was introduced as evidence of Beata Kowalski's state of mind on November 17th, 2016. The text message was not introduced as proof of any of the factual statements or opinions that Beata Kowalski made in that text message. In your deliberations at the end of this case, you should consider this text message only as evidence of Beata Kowalski's state of mind at that time. So that's the first one. The second instruction. During the testimony of Dr. Hinchke, there was evidence presented that Ms. Kowalski has experienced stress related to this current lawsuit. Although I have determined that this evidence is relevant to the issues in this case that you will be instructed on later, any stress that a party to a lawsuit experiences because of their involvement in a lawsuit is not a matter for which damages are recoverable in that lawsuit. Okay, with that, members of the jury, we're going to take a short break. Let's try to keep it to 10 minutes. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Do not do any investigation and receive no information, and we'll see you in about 10 minutes.
All rise, you're exited.
Be seated. Mr. Reyes, now that we're done with the refreshing recollection and I don't have to worry about the gallery, you can go back to how it was. Are there any issues we need to address prior to us taking a break?
Not from the plaintiffs.
Not from the defense.
Okay, let's try to keep this to 10 minutes at the max. Thank you very much. We'll be in recess for 10 minutes. Please be seated, everyone. Okay, welcome back. Just for everyone here in the gallery, I know it's kind of tight in here. We are opening up an overflow courtroom in courtroom F as in Foxtrot. It's 2 doors down, 2 courtrooms down this hallway. If anyone wishes to have a little bit more space, feel free. We're turning on the feed there, so you'll be able to see and hear just like you're in here, but you'll have a little bit more arm space. Just to let you know that that will be an option if you wish.
Your Honor, update on Dr. Newberger. He is very, very doubtful. We designated his deposition. There are 3 volumes. The last one is video, which we would want to show after, of course, edit. The first 2 were not videotaped. They're just regular depos. And so we would like to, in our trial plan, play him tomorrow at some point. The defense, we called and asked if they could expedite their designations, but we wanted to just check with the court and advise you, because we know how busy you are, how much stuff you've got going on, and get a feel for whether it would be a possibility of playing him at some point tomorrow or the next day.
Well, first off, will the defense have an opportunity to do what they need to do?
Well, Judge, I've been through 1 volume. We got that message at some point over the weekend. I had other things I had to deal with. I've been through 1 volume. I haven't been through the other 2 volumes, so I doubt that the court's going to be able to rule on them
Pat, if it helps.
in order to be edited and played tomorrow, Judge, and we have large objections we need to deal with.
We can put off till Wednesday, and so the defense knows, although there are a number of designations in the first volume, the second volume has almost none.
Okay, well,
Well, to the extent that there are designations, by the time we leave today, whatever designations and objections that exist, if I can have them, as well as the full-size transcript. That always helps when I get the depot transcript.
yeah, Judge, understood. I'm not sure what exactly happened over the weekend. It was sort of a mishmash, but I won't be able to finish that until tonight, Judge.
I understand, but if it's 3 volumes and you've already completed 1.
I haven't typed it. It's not like complete,
Okay, well,
Judge.
if you have it.
I do not.
Okay. I was just going to try to start my work, but I mean, if it's not, then
Understood.
it's not. Okay, anything else?
Just if we could clarify the schedule, we understood that Ms. Kowalski and Mr. Kowalski are going to be testifying today. We have 2 witnesses that are in the audience that have been apparently attending part of the proceedings this morning.
What witnesses do we
That
have?
would be Dr. Corcoran and I believe Dr. Brewerton.
2 named designated experts, of course, granted us the exception to sequestration. So Dr. Tim Brewerton, who's the expert psychiatrist, and then Joe Corcoran, who's the expert in hospital administration, and hearing this testimony would obviously be advantageous in forming their opinions.
Anything else?
But I guess my point was, that was one point. The other point is, we understood they were coming tomorrow. We're not trying to squeeze these in today, suddenly.
No, that's not my intention. I mean, if we ran short today, we'd either play a depot, or I guess we could start one of them, but I really don't think we'll have much time today left after Maya Kowalski's testimony direct across.
Okay. For your planning purposes, tomorrow, Tuesday, October 10th, we will have to take our lunch break over the noon hour. So we will have, no matter where we are, we'll have a hard stop at 11:55 if we haven't taken a break. So just understand that I'll have a hard break at 11:55, and then on Wednesday, the 11th, we'll have to take a lunch break at 11:30. So we'll have a hard stop at 11:25. And we'll talk about Thursday later.
Any idea what the length will be?
They're just meetings that, like, I've got a meeting with the chief judge, so probably 30 or 45 minutes, but we'll just take our lunch early.
Right. That's fine.
Yeah. Anything else before we bring the jury in?
We are still trying to work it so that we will finish Friday afternoon, Judge. It just depends on how long it takes to get the witnesses we've informed them about into evidence, and of course, Dr. Newberger, which is why, and I would have obviously done designations earlier, but I was hopeful he would testify live.
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
Okay, well, we're starting to pass over that time of being ahead to being behind, so let's do what we can to try to keep up. Okay, let's bring in the jury.
All rise, jurors entering.
Okay, please be seated. So I hear with that announcement, Deputy Coley is trying to keep you on your toes. I want to confirm while you're away, you did not discuss this case amongst yourselves. You did no investigation and you received no information. Is that all correct? Have you been approached by anyone since we last saw each other? And have you seen any media coverage? Okay. Mr. Anderson, your next witness, sir.
Plaintiff's call Maya Kowalski.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Maya Kowalski.
Maya, you have a very soft voice, so you'll need to get that microphone up there close so everybody can hear you. And where do you live?
I live in Venice, Florida, in a subdivision called Stonewalk.
And how old are you?
I am 17 years old.
Where were you born?
I was born in Elmhurst, Illinois.
Outside of Chicago?
Yes.
What kind of neighborhood?
It's a really small neighborhood. There was barely any houses. There was houses on both sides of the street, but only a single street.
And how were things growing up in your family? And we'll publish 2528-45 for this. And you can continue. I mean, we'll just...
Okay. So here I'm pictured with my dad's deputy chief fire helmet. You could tell I'm feeling pretty cool there. Growing up, Elmhurst was amazing. I loved it there, and it was like a quiet little place.
And did you get to spend some time with your dad and mom?
Both of them, yes.
They both worked?
Yes, they did, but they always made time for their children.
Did your dad ever take you to any fires?
He actually did take me to a few, but eventually he started dropping me off at my neighbor's house. The grandma was Polish, so Kyle and I could communicate with her pretty well.
Okay. And so during your time there in Elmhurst, did your mother or your dad introduce you to different hobbies and sports?
Yes, I was a ballerina at one point. I was a gymnast and then a figure skater. And then Kyle, he played soccer, he did piano, I also did piano. And then Kyle tried out gymnastics for a little bit.
Okay, let's show 2528-102. This is your mom and you ice skating. Was she your
Yes.
instructor at first?
At this point, no. My mom didn't teach me figure skating. She actually started after me. Here, we're in the Wizard of Oz production. I was a munchkin, and then my mom was a cowgirl.
Okay. And did you? Let's go to 2528-115. How old were you when you were introduced to gymnastics?
I started gymnastics in Illinois. There was actually an incident on the playground. I approached a few girls and they were practicing their floor routine, and I asked if I could try, and they told me, no, you're too small, you'll never make it. So I went home, I told my mom, sign me up. She did, and I was actually really good at the sport from the beginning.
And you continued that through when you moved to Florida
Yes.
initially? All right. And so were you able to spend some leisure time with just your mom? And we'll look at 2528-124. And by the way, so your mom didn't introduce you to gymnastics. You had the idea?
Yes, I did. Same with piano, and then ballet, all of them. They were all my ideas,
And your mom supported you in those?
always.
And that story you told, has that been indicative of your life when people tell you you can't do something?
Oh yeah, I'm going to prove you wrong.
All right. So this is you and your mom now. Where is this? Is this once you reached Florida?
Yes, so this is actually Casperson Beach. It's the shark tooth capital of the world. There's a cute little restaurant there called Sharky's, and near it is this little pier, and after dinner we would walk on the pier and watch the sunset.
Was that something you and your mom did regularly or tried to do?
Yeah, we did it quite often actually, all of us as a family.
How was the transition from the suburbs of Chicago down here to the Venice area for you?
For me, it wasn't too bad. I did have my mom's family there and friends, but I was hopeful that I'd make new friends in Florida, and the idea of having a pool was really cool. So, I mean, that helped.
Mm-hmm. That was the inviting thing, the bait.
Yeah.
All right. When you moved to Florida, and really during this period of time before the CRPS, can you tell the jury about your health generally?
Generally, it was really good. I mean, I did have asthma. I was diagnosed in Illinois, but it didn't bother me so much.
And just childhood illnesses for the most part?
Yeah, I did break my arm at one point.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, so in our subdivision, the road, it went up on a hill. So I rode up the hill, and then I did like a little U-turn, and I was going down, but there was a car behind me. I saw it, I freaked out, and I crashed into this curb, and then I fell into a ditch directly onto my arm, and I broke it. After that happened, I didn't cry. I stood up, picked up my bike, dragged it out of the ditch, hopped right back on it, drove home, and I told my dad that my arm hurt, and he didn't think anything was wrong because I wasn't crying or acting, all dramatic. He told me to go lay down. I did. We didn't think much of it. A few days went by, and I was holding it in a weird position, and my dad's like, we should probably go get that checked out. So we went to the doctors. They ordered an x-ray. We went home. We got the call from the doctor that it was fractured, and only then did I cry because I realized I wasn't going to be able to do any of the activities that I enjoyed.
So how many days did you have a broken arm without complaining to your mom or dad?
3.
How was your pain tolerance generally?
I've always had a really high pain tolerance.
So how old were you when you moved to Florida?
I was in 3rd grade, the beginning of 3rd grade, so I would say 8.
And how was that? How was the transition?
It was good. Yeah, I liked all the new animals. The lizards were really cool. I actually used to catch them and pinch them on my ears so they looked like earrings. And then Kyle and I, we loved going outside. We had like a little alligator in the back, and we named him Dzień Dobry, which means hello. We did that for my mom.
And so I want to talk for a second now. Your mom, first generation Polish.
Yes.
Right? And how early did she start you learning Polish?
Well, we grew up learning the language. We heard it from our family and whatnot. But she enrolled us in Polish school in Illinois. In Florida, we didn't continue with that. We just did Rosetta Stone because there was no Polish schools in Florida. But Kyle and I hated Polish school in Illinois, but we did it for her.
Now, pardon me for asking, but what does one do in Polish school?
So the teacher exclusively speaks in Polish, which is kind of hard because then you don't really know what English words match up with the Polish words. We learned the alphabet, the numbers, and then different materials relating to reading and whatnot.
Would your mom speak Polish to you at home?
Yes.
How often?
I would say every day. I mean, I heard Polish from her, and I actually asked her to speak to me in Polish so I could get a good understanding of the language.
And you had relatives that spoke just about only Polish?
Yes, most of my mom's family only speaks Polish because they grew up in Chicago, which is one of the biggest ethnic areas for Polish people, so there's not really a big need to learn English.
Did you actually go to Poland at some point?
I did, yes. I went there for a month.
When? About how old? Let me put it this way. Was this before or after you moved to Florida?
It was before I moved to Florida.
Tell us what you did there.
We visited about every city you could think of, all the cool cities. We saw like street artists doing cool things. We went to different shops. I actually bought a Polish doll there, which I was really proud of. We visited family, my mom's old house, and then my great-grandma, actually, I visited her.
Well, was your mom proud of her, of being Polish ancestry?
I would say so, yeah. She was very proud to be Polish.
Did you know about her story? Did she ever tell you how she ended up over in the United States?
I know that she moved over when she was a teenager, and she had to learn the English language. It was difficult at first, and a lot of people told her she's not going to make it into the profession that she wanted to be, but she proved them wrong.
Now, was this during, when, best of your knowledge, when she moved, strike that, did she grow up under communist Poland or free Poland?
I believe it was communist.
She tell you stories about that?
Not too many. Kyle and I were really young, so...
And is that still important to you, your Polish heritage?
Yes.
All right. And so I want to ask you about the neighborhood itself. Did you have friends there? Friends on or near your age?
Yes.
Several of them?
Yes.
And did you get along with them?
Yeah, we got along, all of us did.
Where'd you go to school?
Well, for elementary school, I went to Taylor Ranch Elementary School.
And how was that?
I really liked it. The teachers were amazing, and it was very different than Illinois.
What was the difference?
Well, something cool about the schools, which is kind of normal for Florida, but very foreign to people who live in Illinois, is that the hallways are actually outdoors. So you walk outside to get to your classes, so it's nice just to see some daylight.
You can't really do that in Illinois.
No.
Not if you want to keep your toes. All right. So, did you generally do well in strike? How did you do in school over this period of time, having moved to Florida?
I was a straight A student.
And you liked your teachers?
Yes, I loved them.
All right. So, let's jump ahead then. What grade did you start at once you moved to Florida?
It was third grade.
Third grade. So you completed second grade?
In Illinois.
In Illinois, so it was third.
And I actually did a week of third grade in Illinois as well, but I did the remainder in Florida.
I was going to ask you. So
yeah.
They come down and visit you every once in a while?
Some of my friends, yes.
Now, by this point, was your dad still in the fire department, or had he retired after all those years?
When we moved to Florida, my dad had retired.
And what did he want to do with his career, if you know?
Once he retired,
Yes.
I think he just wanted to take care of us, spend more time.
Did he have any dreams or aspirations, to the best of your knowledge, about working for FEMA or something else similar to what he had done in the fire department?
I've heard of that, but again, I was really young, so I didn't really know his career plans.
Well, let's jump then to July 3rd and July 4th of 2015. Now, how old would you have been then? This would be...
I would... 2015?
All right, yeah. So this would be, you've been in Florida, I think, yeah, you moved in 2014, so this would be 1 year after you moved.
I was 9 then.
All right. And then we can show 2528129. Now, what's happening here, although the jury, I think, has seen this?
Yeah, so my subdivision, we're really close, and the adults of the neighborhood, they organize special things for the holidays, and one of the biggest ones is the 4th of July parade. Everyone is welcome to hop on their bikes and ride around our circle. We just celebrate, and then afterwards we usually eat food.
Were you able to ride that bike well, or did you have any physical injuries at this point?
I know I had an injury to my ankle, but again, I was always pushing through, so here I don't really look like anything's wrong, but I hurt my ankle.
How soon before this was it that you hurt? Was this like a month before, a week before, or a day before?
I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure, but I know that it was pretty close. I just don't know for sure if it was like weeks.
Well, how bad was it? Was it a sprain, a break?
I believe it was just a sprain.
Did you get any medical care for it at that time? Do you know?
I don't think so, no.
Did you even tell your folks? Is the question.
Yes, I did. My mom had wrapped it and everything.
But by the time of this photo, 2528129, it looks like you can pedal the bike.
Yes.
Well, right, and that's your brother next to you.
Yes.
And he got rid of that beard eventually. He just didn't work
Yeah.
for him. All right. So what happened? Tell the jury what happened over that 4th of July weekend that changed your life.
I had a severe asthma attack, and it was one of the worst asthma attacks I've ever had. I was taken to Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, and I think I stayed there for a couple of days, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, on the day that it happened, did they take you to the ER someplace else? Doctor's hospital?
Yes, my bad.
All right. So if it happened on the 4th, then was it a matter of a couple, 3 days before you went to Johns Hopkins?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Sure. About how many days after you were treated at doctors, and after you had this asthma attack, did you go to Johns Hopkins?
I don't know the number of days. All I know, I wasn't feeling well.
Okay. Well, let me show you 2529-5, and I'll represent that that was taken on or about the 7th or 8th. Actually, it's got it down there. The 7th. All right, what's going on here?
I am in a bed at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital.
All right. And did you walk into Johns Hopkins on this visit?
I believe I was able to walk in on this day, but when I left, I was having extreme complications with walking to the point where I had to be wheeled out in a wheelchair.
Well, the jury needs to know how this came on. You just wake up one morning and bang, you were in extreme pain, or how did it start?
It wasn't like that. It was pretty gradual, but not in the sense that it took like 3 months until I had excruciating pain. It was day by day I noticed that there was a pain in my right leg that was just getting worse and worse.
So it started in your right leg?
Yes.
And did it stay in your right leg or move?
Unfortunately, it did move because I wasn't diagnosed for quite some time.
Did it move or start moving during this stay or after? In other words,
It's-
during this, was it just in your right foot and leg at this point?
At this point, no. It had traveled to the left leg as well.
So about how long did that take for it to?
It would have been 3 days then.
And so they give you something. I know you were very young. Do you remember much about this stay?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Well, they'll have those records. All right. So after this, now, did you go home or did you go to another hospital from there?
Well, after this day, I know I went home, but then I was at one point transferred to another hospital.
Was that the one back up in?
Illinois.
Do you know if you went back to Johns Hopkins for a visit before you went to Lurie's or not?
I know I had been to Johns Hopkins a few times, but I don't. It's really hard for me to remember. I was 10. Every hospital was the
Sure.
same to me at that point.
Yeah, and the jury has the records. All right. So let's publish 252919 and tell us what's going on here.
This is after I got off the plane that I landed in Illinois. My dad had some of his old firefighter friends pick me up off the plane and transfer me in an ambulance. And then the chief, I believe, went to baggage claim and got my mom and I's luggage.
So his old firefighter buddies helped out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking at this photo here, it doesn't look like you're having much fun. I hate to put words in your mouth. But
Oh, yeah,
do you recall any of this?
I remember it was a very difficult plane ride. I mean, I was trying to be respectful to all the passengers, but when you're in pain, it's just so hard to stay quiet.
All right. Well, by this point, then, about how this is what a few weeks or a month after the onset.
Yes.
What happened with the pain? Did it stay the same? Did it decrease? Did it increase?
It had increased.
And where did it increase to physically? Were there any new places or the same?
There was new places. At this point, it was at my midsection, and it was, I don't know for certain, but I know it did transfer to my arms at some point. I just don't know the specific date.
When you say now midsection, explain a little bit more. Are you talking about your tummy or your abdomen? Where?
Yes, I'm talking about my stomach.
At this point, had you started to have problems with any digestion or going to the bathroom? Was that later?
Yes, I had constipation issues, and we later found out that it corresponded to my diagnosis of CRPS.
And what happens there with those going to the bathroom issues?
Do you mean like how CRPS is connected to it, or just...
Just physically, how did it manifest? What was the problem there for you?
I was just constipated, and when Miralax didn't work, we had to go to the hospital.
So did this start right off the bat once you had the pain in the midsection?
Yes. Yeah, I did have constipation.
Was it fairly consistent throughout your various stays at Johns Hopkins? You had this problem in the midsection where you'd get stopped up?
Yes.
All right. So do you recall what they did for you there at Lurie's?
I know that they suggested an intensive physical therapy program, but they also missed the diagnosis of CRPS.
All right. So they didn't, at this point, did you know what was really causing your pain?
No one knew.
And what was the effect on your mom and dad not knowing? Here you are a month or so after it manifested, it came on. How did it affect them?
Well, my parents were extremely worried, and in turn that made me more anxious because as a kid you look up to your parents for the answers. And then when they look up to the doctors for the answers and they don't even have them, you're just so unbelievably anxious.
So you came back home then, I guess?
Yes.
And did you go to another hospital after that?
Yes, my parents had taken the suggestion from the Illinois hospital, and we went to an intensive physical therapy program at Tampa General.
About how long was it from Lurie's, the hospital in Chicago, to when you went up to Tampa General?
I'm sorry, I don't know the dates.
The same summer period, or?
Oh, yeah, it was the same. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
And how was your pain doing at this point?
My pain was still pretty bad.
Had anybody approached you at this point at Lori's and said anything about this just being all in your head, or was that, did you know anything about that, or was this just something you found out later?
I found that out later.
And was it in your head?
No.
Okay. So let's talk about and publish 2529-23. Okay, and where is this?
This is in the PT room at Tampa General Hospital.
And what are they having you do there?
This is a machine that is intended to strengthen your arm muscles.
Okay. How many hours of PT were you doing a day there at this time, if you recall?
I don't know the number of hours, but I remember Marissa, the physical therapist, because it's an intensive program, the PT, I believe, was like 2 to 3 times a day.
And what did they tell you about why you had to do the PT?
Well, none of the doctors knew what was wrong with me at the time, so they just assumed that strengthening my muscles would maybe help get me to walking again.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, this face you're making here, does that fairly and accurately represent you in pain?
Yes, I'm trying to smile here, but unfortunately I was still experiencing a lot of pain.
Well, had it traveled up to your legs, to your arms at this point? Or
At this point, yes.
had you manifested any other symptoms? Now, looking back, not that you knew at the time, during this stay, if you know.
I can't say for certain, but I believe I started seeing some lesions, and I was very sensitive to touch. I know that for sure.
So how was PT for you at Tampa General?
It was very challenging. It's excruciating.
Mm-hmm. And was Miss Marissa, who testified here, nice to you?
She was lovely, yes.
All right. And were you outpatient or inpatient?
I was
In other words,
inpatient, yeah.
So you stayed there?
Yes.
And you remember for about how long?
A month.
All right. Now here, were your parents allowed to stay with you?
Yes.
All right. And let's then publish 2529-34 and ask about this. All right. Now, is that Marissa there in the green?
In the green, that is Marissa.
And what's that on your feet? What are you doing there?
So that machine is for pedaling, again, just in hopes of strengthening my leg muscles.
Now, at this point, a couple months maybe past when it came on, it looks like you still have some pretty good muscle mass in your legs.
Yes, and then I don't know if you could really tell, but you could see that my dystonia is starting to get worse.
Uh-huh. That means your toes pointing in?
Correct.
Tell the jury about that. There were allegations that you somehow made this up. Did you have any control over your feet when they started to go into that position?
I had absolutely no control over that.
What did it feel like when they began turning in?
It was extremely painful, and it was like tense, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. All right. Who's that person behind you?
That is Bonnie Rice.
Uh-huh.
I kind of call her like the Kathy Beatty of Tampa General. She was a nurse, but overstepped in many ways.
So she followed you around?
Yes.
And she wasn't quite as nice as Marissa?
Definitely not.
Mm-hmm. Why did they have a nurse following you around everywhere?
Subject to the situation, Your Honor.
She knows.
Sustain once you re-ask.
What, if anything, do you know about why Bonnie Rice was following you around here?
I had the understanding that Bonnie Rice, even though she was a nurse, she believed that I had either conversion disorder, so I was like making out my disease. I don't know what child would want to pretend not being able to walk and not being able to play with their friends, but she drew that conclusion. She also had some problems with my mom because she expressed these concerns to my mom, My mom knew I was not making this up. She knew her daughter.
So wherever you went, there was Bonnie Rice?
Yes.
So it eventually, and at this point, were you completely in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Okay. And so then, did you even have to go to school? Once you got out of there, did you have to go to school in a wheelchair?
I did visit my school in a wheelchair for the lemonade stand fundraiser they had for me.
Okay, let's publish 2529-39. We'll come back to TGH. Now, what's this?
This is the school bus that had the lift so I could be brought to school in my wheelchair.
Okay, and this, it looks like it's September 21st, 2015. Was this after TGH?
To my understanding, yes, I believe so.
Okay, well, let's, or maybe it was before. Let's go back to TGH. Now let's publish 2529-41. Now what's that?
That is a CRPS lesion.
Right. And tell the jury how do you identify that?
Well, at the time, I still didn't know I had CRPS. Nobody did. So I started getting these open sores on my body, and I was very concerned because it's something I've never had before. And they're very painful, especially when you touch them.
Mm-hmm. And did they hurt?
Extremely, yes.
To the touch, or just whatever you did?
When you put touch on them, it amplified the pain.
And so let's look at 2661. Now this is a video, and I'm going to ask you after this, what's significant about, first, was this after TGH?
I don't know what day, oh.
All right. So after this, I want you to tell the jury what's significant about this. And the date on it, I believe, is September, sometime September of, again, 2015. I only counted one note off. Now, to those that, I guess, play piano or not, what was happening with your legs?
Okay, so to people, you probably don't notice this if you're not a pianist, but there is a distinct sound when the pedals are being pressed. At this point, I was not able to press the pedals even though the song called for it. So I had severe dystonia, and that limited me from being able to do that.
Were you, obviously you're able to play piano, were you able to do any of the activities that you had before? Or?
Other than piano, I was not, because all of them required me to stand and walk and jump.
Okay. Now, here we are in September of 2015, and you're in a wheelchair. What other signs, what if any other signs of, or symptoms of CRPS did you note at this time?
At this time, I was twitching. I had the allodynia, dystonia, lesions. There was the temperature changes in my limbs that we started to notice.
Tell the jury about the temperature changes. Why is this any different than just, being chilly or like being too hot or too cold, turn up the air conditioning or down the air conditioning?
Because it happens at random times and it's not influenced by external temperature. It's all internally happening. And then another thing that was weird that started happening is I would sweat in different areas, but not all over my body.
What areas, if you recall?
The back of my neck, and then lower back. I don't remember all of them, but those are the two that I specifically remember.
And were these dependent on whether you were cold or the exterior temperatures at all?
No, they were not dependent on the external environment.
Well, what else? Anything with the ears or eyes?
I did have tinnitus, which is just ringing in the ears, which I've never had before. And then with my eyesight, at this point, it was okay.
All right. And, okay, so your eyes are all right. So, through this period of time, did you get to see Dr. Wassenauer?
Yes, I did.
And he couldn't figure out what was wrong yet either?
No.
All right. So then did there come a time when somebody did know what was wrong with you?
Yes.
All right. If we could publish a video of 2666, and then you'll tell us if about this in a moment.
That doesn't feel good when I touch your legs, right? Or your tummy, when I touch your tummy, that feels good, right?
All right. Now, were you in distress there?
Yes.
Was that the kind of reaction you would get sometimes when people would touch your legs?
Yes, it's just from the allodynia.
All right. So the jury wants to know if you have this effect when someone touches your legs, how are you able to deal with blankets being pulled over, clothes being put on, any of the usual things you do if you have this reaction?
A common misconception with CRPS is that all of the symptoms from the beginning to whenever you have it, they're constant and then they stay that way. But in reality, symptoms can change on a day-to-day basis.
So sometimes you, like we saw in the video, you'd have the blankets off of you and sometimes on,
Yes,
depending on the day.
correct.
Was this frustrating?
It was. It was annoying to constantly have to tell people to help you with certain things, especially with the temperature changes, because you want to be comfortable, and here you're asking people to change either this thermostat or help you with blankets or help you change into something else, and you know you can't do it for yourself, so you just feel like an inconvenience.
Yeah. Have you always been a pretty independent person?
Oh, yes.
Did your mom want you to be that way, independent, be able to handle things on your own?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know how, just if you know, you got to Dr. Kirkpatrick from the prior doctors you'd seen?
I do know the story.
Okay. Tell the jury how you ended up at Dr. Kirkpatrick's, and then we'll show, I think we can bring up a photo, 2529-42, and if you could just tell them what happened, how you got there.
Yes, so my mom was an infusion nurse during this entire time, and while I was at Tampa General, Bonnie Rice, the nurse I told you about earlier, she had a phone conversation with my mom, and that's when Bonnie said that she thinks that I was making up my condition. My mom told her no, there's no way. My mom listed all the symptoms I was having and said, how can she be faking these? My mom went back into the room to treat her patient, and he said, I'm sorry,
I respectfully object to the hearsay.
What did she say next?
Objection to the hearsay.
Who said next?
What did, Strike how did you know that Dr. Kirkpatrick might have some answers without telling us what somebody told you?
I know from the person who told us. I mean, that's how we found him.
Oh, sure.
So,
and who suggested it?
It was the patient of my mom, Dave, because he has a daughter with CRPS.
So a dad of another girl that had CRPS
Yes.
suggested?
Correct.
Now, so you went in and saw Dr. Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
And tell the jury what he did in order to determine what was going on.
He had a very lengthy examination of me, and it included multiple different tests. And he took all the data, and then he said that my symptoms and my condition aligns with CRPS.
Did he explain about the Budapest criteria?
He did.
And so what types of symptoms did you show in front of him, if you recall?
I believe he did a temperature test of my extremities. He noted certain lesions I had. You could see one on my right arm. And then I had extreme sensitivity to light. It's just with CRPS, the nerves are hypersensitive. I also had dystonia at the time. I believe at that appointment there was no there was no signs of sweating, abnormal sweating, but again, that's just every day is different.
What's up with the sunglasses? Why the sunglasses?
I was sensitive to light, and that's just because the nerves in CRPS patients are hypersensitive. And then another, obviously the big giveaway that I had CRPS was the burning pain.
And the feet turning in there, that's the dystonia he noted?
Yes.
And about how long did he have you over there to examine you?
It was quite a few hours. It wasn't like in and out like other doctors' offices.
And did Dr. Kirkpatrick keep you in the mix about what he was doing and why?
Yes, he always told me what he was going to be doing, the certain tests. He asked me if I was comfortable, uncomfortable. He listened to me.
All right, now this photograph is dated, I think, down there in the bottom left. It's October 5th, 2015. Had you seen him before this visit?
I'm not sure what day I saw him, but I know that he had an examination of me, and then the next time I went in, after trying pool therapy, we tried out the ketamine infusion.
Okay, so important to know, did Dr. K immediately go to ketamine, or did he have another therapy he thought might work?
No, he wanted me to try the non-medicated route first, which we did.
And what was that non-medicated route?
It was warm water therapy. My dad had bought a system to heat our pool. So I think like 10 out of 12 months of the year it's warm. So I was able to practice my therapy in there and try to gain some strength.
And did you try hard at that?
Yes.
How'd it do?
It helped a little bit, but it was not the improvement that Dr. Kirkpatrick was hoping for, or any of us were hoping for. So he decided it would be best to try the ketamine infusion.
In terms of physical therapy now, well, let's talk about what you had already been through at the different places at Tampa General and so forth. Had you had physical therapy so far?
Yes.
By this point? Had you had, I guess, occupational therapy, upper body stuff?
Yes.
And had you had some psychological evaluations?
Yes, I had counseling.
And did you then have warm water therapy?
Yes.
And what kind of meds had they put you on up to this point of the ketamine? What were you taking?
I'm going to be honest, I was, again, like really young, so I didn't ask what medication I was taking. But it's my understanding I did try some prescribed opioids from my doctors.
Remember anything about whether they worked or not?
They didn't.
All right. So you'd been through physical therapy, occupational therapy, psychotherapy, warm water therapy, opioids. Now you were trying ketamine?
Yes.
Tell the jury how that went.
The ketamine infusion?
Yes.
So
have we put in 252942? Is that already up? All right. Let's go ahead and explain what.
So the ketamine infusions were very different than anything I had tried previously. It's this like really small room with a bunch of different equipment and then a nice soft bed. And then super adjacent to the bed is like a little TV so the patients can watch whatever they want while they're getting the infusion. I slept for most of it, so I don't really know the duration of the whole treatment, but I know it was over the course of a few days.
Well, you said you slept during most of it. How were you sleeping at night at this point?
Oh, I was not sleeping. It's very difficult to sleep when, you're having excruciating pain and pain that you've never felt before.
And so, even with your high pain tolerance, describe for the jury as best you can so they can understand what it's like, the CRPS pain.
How I describe it to people who don't have CRPS, it's like I was born with gasoline deep within my body, and some incident, whether it was that sprained ankle or the severe asthma attack, was like a match and acted as a catalyst that just set my body on fire, and I have to live with this burning pain.
All right. And so how many of these, strike that, during the time at TGH, did you also have physical appliances applied to your legs and ankles to see if that would straighten out some of your symptoms?
Unfortunately, yes.
Tell the jury about those, in addition to physical therapy, occupational therapy, psychotherapy, warm water therapy, opioids.
So with CRPS, you have to be very careful with the type of therapies that you provide. And with physical therapy, you have to be especially gentle. Now, I was put into an intensive physical therapy program, and again, at the time, we didn't know I had CRPS, so we didn't know that it was actually doing more damage than good. One of the doctors noticed that my dystonia was getting extremely severe as my stay went on. He suggested that he breaks my feet, have a corrective surgery to straighten them out.
Let's publish 2529-35.
And that was Dr. Kornberg. I remember his name.
Okay. All right. So are those the corrective boots you wore?
Yes, so this was like part one of his plan. He wanted to see if the boots would straighten my feet out, and if it didn't, he was going to resort immediately to surgery.
Now, I can't quite see your mouth there, but what are you feeling there in that facial gesture?
Forcing my feet to immediately go from, completely turned in to straight was an awful idea. It was extremely painful. I remember just crying and crying.
And did your mom want you to try it, though?
She did. She knew it was hurting me, but again, at the time, we didn't know what was going on, so she was just listening to the doctors.
So the jury knows, did your mom ever push you to do any of these treatments, or was this something that you wanted to try too?
I also wanted to try it because I had my trust invested in the doctors. I thought they knew what they were doing.
Through this entire period of time, were you ever pushed by your parents to continue a therapy that wasn't beneficial, or strike that? Were you ever pressured to do any types of therapies or things that maybe you already knew didn't work?
No, if we figured out that it didn't work, they were okay with listening to me and not going on with it.
Okay. So how many of the ketamine therapies do you recall having for this with Dr. K?
So after Tampa General, I had, I believe, one, not like a single treatment, but because it spanned over a couple of days, but itself, it was just like one session, if that makes sense.
Okay. Now, at this point, if you can recall, I think we have a video, I don't know if we'll see it, but can you show the jury about how high you could raise your arm going into all of this? Can you demonstrate about how high you could get it?
Yeah, at Dr. K's, I believe I told you about the examination, and part of his examination was like a physical range of motion examination. I was only able to lift my hand to about ear level, nothing past that because of the pain.
All right, and so then after that, how did the ketamine therapies do for you, the ones at Dr. K's?
At Dr. Kirkpatrick's office, the ketamine definitely helped. It had helped me more than any of the previous therapies I've tried. So I wanted to stick with that in addition to trying the warm water therapy and continuing going to counseling. But ultimately, Kirkpatrick noticed that his treatments weren't going to get me to where he wanted me to be. So he brought on another doctor.
Okay. And were you continuing the warm water therapies when you were doing the ketamine?
Yes.
How did the ketamine affect your ability to do physical therapy?
Well, obviously I couldn't do it like immediately after. It's a new drug and I did have some side effects. I was a little bit confused coming out of it, but the confusion doesn't last long. By the end of the day, I was talking in my normal self.
But could you do more warm water physical therapy using the ketamine as without it?
Yes.
And why was that?
It's just because it alleviates my pain. For the first time, something is actually helping lower that burning pain. So I wanted to try even harder in physical therapy.
How did it feel finally having a diagnosis that made sense?
Obviously, the diagnosis itself isn't great, but it's nice knowing what it is so you can develop a course of action to try to tackle it.
Did your mom, best of what you remember, start researching what CRPS was?
Yes. So my mom, she was an infusion nurse, and she's pretty familiar in the medical field. So naturally, she wanted to learn all about it herself.
In terms of the medical analysis, if you will, for you, between your mom and dad, who would take the lead?
My mom did because that was her field of expertise.
Okay. So your mom was kind of your home physician or home nurse?
Sure, yeah.
And she was teaching you Polish?
Mm-hmm.
And would she take you to different events and places, drive you places?
Yes.
And was she helping you with your piano?
Yes.
And was she helping you through ballet?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have a good relationship with your mom through this?
Yes, I always did.
How about the fact that she wanted you to try some of these therapies that were hurting you? Did that harm the relationship? Or?
No, it didn't, because again, you have to remember before we went to Dr. Kirkpatrick, we didn't know what it was. So I think her willingness to try everything was actually a sign of love.
How did your dad react to finally hearing that this was CRPS? I mean, it's mixed. Or?
I mean, no parent wants their kid to have like a chronic illness. So they were sad, but I think at the same time they were just happy to hear a definite answer.
And how did they react to you telling them that after these ketamine infusions that it helped?
They were so happy to know that, something was helping. Finally, like one thing we try is actually doing something for me.
And up to this point, could they do anything for you when the pain would be at its worst? Was there anything they could give you or do for you that would affect it?
Before this, no, not at all. I mean, I remember laying in bed and just crying, and I have this memory of my dad. He took my monkey. You'll probably see it in a bunch of pictures, but he would take the hand of the monkey and rub it on my forehead until I fell asleep.
Mm-hmm. And were you sleeping, tell us the sleeping arrangement once this got really bad.
Once my pain was to the point where I was just crying and screaming throughout the entire night, the way our house is arranged, first off, is I'm on the opposite side of the house, and then there's my brother's room right across from mine, and then the other side is my parents' room. So I couldn't walk to go and tell them when I needed help going to use the restroom, so we implemented a walkie-talkie system. It sounds silly, but I didn't have a phone at the time, so I would talk back and forth to them so they could help me in the middle of the night.
Could you tell how it was affecting your folks that their little girl was moaning all night in pain?
I try to keep it in as much as possible because...
Did they appear to be under some stress?
Yeah, they were definitely stressed out. And
how about Kyle?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we used to play together all the time.
Were you and your brother close?
Yes, we were. Even when we were really little, we had a very good relationship.
It's like you're the big sister?
Yeah.
Okay. How far apart are you two?
We are 18 months.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then we do have an older sister as well.
That's right, Corrine?
Yes.
How much older is she?
I think she's 16 years older than me.
Okay. And were you close? Are you close with her?
Yes.
How was Kyle reacting to hearing his big sister in this kind of pain?
Well, my parents tried to keep him out of the loop when we didn't know what it was, because you don't want to worry your other child as well. But obviously he knew something was wrong. I wasn't walking, I wasn't playing, wasn't laughing as much. I didn't go outside because I couldn't. So I believe he tried his best to distract himself with the neighborhood kids playing football and whatnot. But he was heartbroken.
Yeah. And so for you, was it difficult to see the other kids outside playing and you in the wheelchair?
Yes, very much so. There's actually one day I was invited to the YMCA, which is where I used to do gymnastics. And I was wheelchair bound at the time, and I never went back to watch them because it just ate me up.
Do you want to get out of that wheelchair?
Yes.
All right. So now, we've tried this, and how long approximately would Dr. Kirkpatrick's ketamine therapy benefits last? After you stopped, how long would it be before the pain would come back?
I would say, I don't know the exact days. I really didn't keep track as a kid, but I believe like maybe a week and a couple of days, but it just didn't last as long as we hoped.
All right, so did he make a referral then to try a different approach?
Yes, he did.
And where did he send you?
He called Dr. Cantu. He's a doctor in Monterrey, Mexico, and I went there.
You remember that?
I do, yes.
Do you remember the hotel you stayed at?
I do. I remember pretty much everything about the trip except the 5 days when I was sleeping.
Okay. And so, leading up to it now, did you have some conferences with Dr. Cantu about what was going to happen?
Actually, I had a discussion with Dr. Kirkpatrick first. He explained some of the risks associated with the ketamine-induced sedation, the prolonged sedation. And then when I went to Monterrey, Mexico, I was then again told about the risks.
And how did it strike you? I know you were only, had you turned 10, I guess, by this point?
Yes, in December.
Yeah, because your birthday is when in?
December 10th.
Okay. So, what was your reaction, from what you recall on your age at that time, to hearing that there were some possible complications, some possible risks with this procedure?
Well, I was presented with the worst case scenario, which was a 50% chance of death. Even though that's not completely true, they always give you the worst case scenario just in case something bad happens.
Had you heard that with other medications and things?
Yeah, I mean, every medication has like a ton of side effects. But you know it's bad when like a 10-year-old is willing to take that risk. I mean, that's how bad my pain was.
So, the hotel you were staying at, was it fairly close to Dr. Cantu's office?
Yes.
And so then you, at this point, were displaying pretty prominent CRPS symptoms?
Yes.
Let's publish 2529-58. Record reflect, this is November 18th, 2015 in Mexico. All right. Tell the jury what's going on here. What are these?
These are CRPS lesions.
And now, what's the deal between the round one and the one that's a line? Although, if we can we go any closer on that to see?
So, to the naked eye, it kind of looks like a scratch, but in reality, with CRPS, sometimes the lesions do present like that, but they're actually connected.
All right, and so down there, right above the green band, I mean, is that another lesion there right off of it?
Yes.
Okay. And were you seeing more of these?
I was.
And what was your worry? I mean, had you, I realized you were only 10, had you read up on CRPS?
I personally did not read up on it, but I knew other people who had it.
Tell us how you knew other people who had it.
So there's actually this, well, she used to live in Mexico. She had CRPS really bad. She had it when she was a kid. She went into remission for a couple of years, actually, and then she got bit.
Your Honor,
do object to this line of questioning.
About her having a friend? May I ask her about the friend?
Move on to the next question.
So you had friends down there.
Yeah.
And had it come to your attention from various sources that CRPS could take your life?
Yes.
Had you seen examples of that?
Unfortunately.
Okay. And had you seen examples of it going into remission and then coming back?
Yes.
So let's publish 2529-60. The record reflects this is in Mexico, November 19th, 2015. More examples of lesions, is that right?
Correct.
And where are these?
These are on my ankle.
Do you have any lesions right now?
I do have a few on my leg. My right leg, that is.
All right. So then let's publish 2529-61, looking at symptoms. Now here, although obviously you, were you unconscious at this point in this picture?
Yes.
And why is that significant in light of different allegations people were making against you at Johns Hopkins?
Well, because when you're unconscious, you don't really have control over your body movements. So my feet still being in that fixed position, like pointing inwards, shows that I was not making this up.
All right. And so you, knowing about the risk, you and your parents, did you talk about whether you wanted to do this?
Yes, they specifically asked me, and I know I was really young at the time, but they gave me pretty much full authority of whether I was going to go through with the prolonged sedation or not.
Have you always been pretty mature for your age?
Yes.
I mean, at least in these ways, analysis and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
You were aware of your body and how to take care of yourself.
Yes.
I object to the leading, Your Honor.
Overruled.
All right, so then let's publish 2529-69, and I want you to tell the jury a little bit about your relationship with Dr. Cantu. Is that Dr. Cantu who came and testified here?
Yes. He is so nice. He was, in addition to Dr. Kirkpatrick, he was one of the very few doctors who really listened to me.
Mm-hmm. And did he speak mostly English to you or Spanish? What?
To us, he spoke English, but when we couldn't really communicate with him because we didn't know Spanish, my friend, the one with CRPS, Jessica, her mom, she spoke both language fluently, so she helped translate certain things for us.
Okay. And did Dr. Cantu tell you about this procedure that you were going to go into?
Yes.
Okay. Now, behind you there is a photograph of another patient, I think, next to you?
Yes.
Was that another CRPS patient?
Yeah, Your Honor, we objection in the HIPAA violation.
There's no, she's not in the picture.
In multiple bases about talking about other
Sustained.
All right. So, did Dr. Cantu then go over with you the specifics of how this is going to go and any problems you might have from it?
Yes, he was very in depth.
And so you underwent the procedure. I want you to tell the jury what the procedure was like.
Well, I met with the team of people who are going to be taking care of me prior to going under. I talked to all of them, and they explained what their role was in my care. So I trusted them, and I understood what they were going to be doing. I was told about the potential side effects, what it might be like when I'm coming out of it. I was explained the risks. I got a full, in-depth picture view of what was going to happen.
Now, was your mom aware of other CRPS, either studies or real people, where CRPS had gone into remission and then come back to cause their death?
Yes. Speculation, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Yes.
All right. So you, how long does the procedure last, this first procedure?
I believe it was 7 or 5 days. I think it was 5 or 7. I know that I think it was like 5 days of the actual medication of ketamine, but then there was 2 days for me to like slowly come out of it.
And coming out of it, how were you doing?
I mean, it was a little scary. I had the tube taken out of my throat and I was coughing. I was a little confused about what was happening, but that all went away.
How long did it take for those symptoms or side effects, if you will, to subside?
I believe it was a day until I felt completely myself, but by the evening I was somewhat okay.
And when you say somewhat okay, you've just been through this procedure. How did you feel, Maya?
Oh, like as part of me, like physically, I was feeling incredible. I actually asked Dr. Cantu, I'm like, hey, could I try walking? And he told me I couldn't do that because I could potentially, go back to where I was. He said, just baby steps.
So you felt good enough to think you could get out of that wheelchair?
I wanted to try.
Okay. All right. And this procedure was under general anesthesia, is that right?
Correct.
So you were out.
Yes.
So you don't remember anything?
I don't remember anything at all.
Now, did Dr. Cantu recommend that you have a booster soon thereafter?
Yes.
And what did you understand why the booster was necessary?
I know that he had performed this procedure many other times, and it's pretty standard practice for a patient to return and get the booster just to help.
Okay. And that procedure, now, was that back completely under, intubated and completely under, or was that like the times you had it at Dr. Kirkpatrick's?
No, it was very similar to Dr. Kirkpatrick's.
So you were not unconscious in any way?
No.
And about how long did those procedures take?
Those were also a couple of hours. I remember taking a little nap, but again, it's just because of the sleeping problem.
Between the two procedures, did any of the symptoms come back briefly or to the point where you're concerned? Or
I honestly don't remember. I know I was doing very well after the prolonged sedation. I think, again, it's just like pretty standard to get a booster.
Sure. All right. And then you headed home.
Yes.
So how did you do that first 30 days after this long-term ketamine procedure? Tell the jury what happened physically in terms of the pain and all of these symptoms and effects that you had from CRPS.
I felt significantly better. My dystonia was much better. My feet were almost straight on certain days. And just in generally, they were like significantly like better. I mean, just straighter and everything. My pain was much lower. And then my lesions had almost completely healed.
And we'll see some photos on that. Your Honor, I'm going to break into another section. Do you want me to continue on, or do you want to?
I think we keep going.
Sure. All right. Returning from Mexico, let's look at 2530-3. And so this is, it looks like, December 24th, Christmas Eve?
Yes.
2015. So were you out of the wheelchair?
No, I was still in the wheelchair, but if you look at my arm, the lesions are a lot less prevalent, and then my feet generally look a lot straighter. There was some dystonia still.
Can we focus in on the feet there? Okay. All right, there's a couple of black dots there. What are those?
Those are just healing lesions.
All right, but they were not active?
No.
All right. And I notice you're smiling here. Is that simply because of the Mickey Mouse ears, or are there other reasons?
No, I was just a happier kid in general because my pain was, I had some relief finally. And my mom and my brother were not in Mexico for the booster treatment, so I was happy to see them.
Okay. Let's then publish 2530-6 and ask you whether you were getting strong enough to do some energetic playing in the pool.
Most definitely. So at Dr. Kirkpatrick's pre-coma, I said that I could lift my arm like ear level, and now it was above my head, and I could handle my brother touching my legs here, and my feet are much straighter.
And that's December 28th, almost the end of the year.
Yep.
Okay. Then let's publish 2686. See how you're doing even a week later.
Cute girls. Really cute. Got it.
Who's that? Was that your friend from Chicago?
Yes. She had come to visit me, and it was perfect timing because I was feeling a lot better than I had been.
Okay. And could you have moved your arms and legs like that before you had the infusions in Mexico?
There are some days where you could see some movement, but nothing like that.
All right. And then published 2530 -27. Did the improvements continue for you?
Yes.
All right. And again, I see you're holding up your arms. Could you hold your arms up that high before the Mexico treatments?
No, I could not.
And I notice your legs there sitting sort of cross-legged. Did you sit cross-legged a lot?
Yeah, that was pretty typical for me. I don't know why, but when I was sitting in that position, there was some difference in my pain. It wasn't as dramatic as I would have liked it to be, but generally it made my pain less.
Was it the most comfortable position for you on sitting on things?
By far.
Okay. That you used some of the dystonia?
Yes.
All right. So let's then look at how you continue to improve. And did you continue to improve through the spring and summer?
Yes.
Okay. Let's publish 2691. And as we're doing it here now, your family likes to scuba dive?
Yes, that's a
So we
common
can
thing
see
in our family.
what's going on now. And what's that on your wrist?
That is a bracelet that my cousin Matthew Klein gifted to me. It says never give up, and that kind of became my motto.
Okay. All right, and the date on that, the record reflect is April 30th, 2016. So you try to spend a lot of time in the pool to
Yes.
strengthen up? With the idea? And did your dad work with you a lot on the physical therapy?
Yes, kind of my whole family did. That was kind of cool about it because it was also like family bonding time.
All right, published 2530-41. And this is May. Now we're into May. Okay. And you got your legs, one leg crossed, sitting on the other. You were able to do that, obviously.
Yes.
And you're obviously capable of eating gummy bears.
Yeah.
All right. And did your brother feel better now seeing you able to do some things with him?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Now, how did you get around on the floor? Did you have to get in your wheelchair to move from one spot to the other, or were you able to crawl, or what?
I was able to crawl a little bit, but I also used my wheelchair to get from like place to place if it was like longer distances and if the floor wasn't comfortable. Another significant thing was I was actually able to push my own wheelchair, so I had some independence in my movements.
And was that a happy-making thing for you?
Oh yeah, I was extremely happy.
Gave you a little more freedom? All right. So through the course of the summer there, were you getting stronger and feeling better?
Yes.
All right. Was it always so, or did you have some ups and downs?
Ups and downs, which is kind of expected with CRPS.
All right. And so let's see. I would like to publish. Who back then was your favorite singer?
I loved Meghan Trainor.
Okay. And let's talk about how you were doing in July of 2016. If we'll play the clip, just 3600 to 47. It's a brief clip from, and you can tell us what you're doing here in a moment. At this point, did you have limited use of, oh, here you go.
My apologies, counsel. What's the date of this, please?
This is July 28th, 2016. Yes, July 28th. No, let's see. The clip is 26:59 on July 28th, 2016. You're moving pretty good there, Maya.
Yes.
Okay, but still not out of the wheelchair.
No.
Were you hoping to get out of that wheelchair?
Yes, I was on the track to be getting out.
All right. And so when you had some periods where the pain would come back, was it as strong or was it less than what you'd expected, what you had experienced before the Mexico infusions?
It was less than what I experienced previous to the prolonged sedation in Mexico.
All right. But did you continue the ketamine program through the summer?
I did because it's what worked for me.
Okay. And so you would go back for sets when you needed them, and there were a lot of them at some points and none at others?
Right. It just depended on my condition.
Okay. Did you try with your folks, did you try other types of treatments?
Yes. So even though we established that the ketamine had worked for me, we learned about the hyperbaric chamber, so we gave that a shot.
And how is that supposed to work? If you know, if you don't know, it's okay. But
I really don't understand the whole thing, but I did try it.
But you were in a high oxygen environment for a while. Is that
Yeah,
it?
that's all I know. I don't really know everything else.
Do you know why you wanted your folks and you wanted to try something different than the ketamine infusions?
Well, they were always open to new therapies. They weren't just exclusively going to use ketamine. So when they heard about some success with the hyperbaric oxygen treatment, they gave it a go.
And did they want you to try things that did not involve a medication?
Yes.
And so what about IVIG, the immune system stimulant? Did you try that?
I did try that, yes.
Briefly. And did that do any good?
I don't have much recollection of it being like substantial, but I know that it did help me because I was willing to do it again.
Okay. Now, Maya, you were, as the record reflects, oh, okay, let's see. Yeah. I want to show how you were doing then in June and July of 2016. Now that we get into the summer, I published 2530-46.
Yeah, so here you could see my feet flat on the ground, which was a huge step for me. I was very proud of myself. I'm holding myself up with my upper body strength, and my dystonia is not present in this picture. I was really close to walking.
Okay. And were you looking forward to walking?
Yes, yes.
Let's publish 2530-50. Was it important for you to be working your upper body here?
Yeah, so my goal was to strengthen my upper body enough to the point where I could hold myself up with the walker if my legs gave out at certain times, so I was still safe and would prevent injury. Even though it was painful, I pushed myself.
Okay. Now, continuing then through the summer, were you looking forward to getting out of that wheelchair?
Yes.
Tell the jury by August of 2016, did you believe you were going to be able to get out of that wheelchair?
By the fall, I truly believed it, and I wanted to go back to school, walking.
Now, did there come a time when you, all right, let's play 2659. Did your mom encourage you through these things?
This is the
That's not it, is it?
Nope.
Let's continue, and then I'll get that straight. And it was your mom encouraging you on the walker, if we get to it. And my next question is, were your mom and dad encouraging you through this period of time to get better, get out of that wheelchair?
Always. They always were very positive around me.
So driving you to these different appointments and things, was that a pretty significant time commitment for them?
It was, and it was very difficult, but again, they wanted what was best for their children, and that included, helping me with my treatments.
All right. So and we'll get back to that one video in a moment.
2695.
All right. Then let's do 2695.
That's better. I love you. Now go down slowly.
Now, what's the goal there with the legs?
Go down slowly. Good job.
Sorry, I did not hear your question.
Good job. Very good. Excellent.
Mr. Anderson, I apologize again. Can you please tell me the date of the video?
July 28th, 2016.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So the goal here by this point, the end of July, was that by the middle of fall you were going to be out?
Yes.
All right. And then did there come a time when you wanted to avoid going back to school in a wheelchair?
Yeah, I was the only kid in a wheelchair, so I didn't want to be that kid going back to school.
How were you going? What was homebound?
So that's a program where the teachers will come to your house and actually give you instruction.
Okay. And did you like that? Did you like your teachers?
I love my teachers. I mean, the fact that they were willing to take time out of their day to come and teach me, it meant everything.
And could they work around your treatment schedules?
They did, yes.
What was your concern with going back to school insofar as your treatment schedules?
Well, I would be missing instruction. I probably would miss assignments and my grades would drop. And I really didn't want to jeopardize my education, so we tried a different route.
Okay. And did it trouble you quite a bit then that you were going to have to go back to school in your wheelchair?
Yes.
And what did that lead to?
It unfortunately led to a relapse.
All right. Well, this is your first relapse since Mexico? Or
Yes.
Your first relapse ever, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you go back to Dr. Hannah to complete more of a ketamine infusion set?
Yes, I did. We went to him because it's less expensive compared to Kirkpatrick.
Okay. And through the course of this now, what were the symptoms that you were displaying insofar as your stomach? And remember what we talked about before, the intestines and so forth. What was going on in this relapse? Or strike it. What had returned?
So with CRPS, it's pretty well known that it could affect some organs, and for me, it affected my large intestine, so I often got pretty constipated. It's because both, CRPS, it's an attack on the sympathetic nervous system, which also affects the digestive system, so I was pretty constipated regularly.
And from time to time, did you end up in an ER for the constipation that resulted?
Yes, when our remedies at home, like Miralax, didn't work, we were forced to go to the ER.
To get cleaned out, gross,
Correct.
but
Yeah.
yes. Okay. And then let's publish 2530-61, and for the record, this is October 6, 2016. How are you sleeping at this time, by the way, at home?
Wasn't sleeping very well at night, so I took the opportunity whenever I was tired to sleep. This is during one of my infusions at Dr. Hannah's, and I'm taking a nap.
Were these infusions painful for you by this point, or?
No, the infusions themselves were not painful.
Okay. All right, then.
Mr. Anderson, can I see the attorneys for a moment? Okay, members of the jury, I'm just cognizant of our time, cognizant that you haven't had a break in a while. I know we're a little early for lunch, but instead of taking a break short and then go to lunch, why don't we just take an early lunch before we get into the next subject of the direct examination? So let's call it, if I could have the jury ready to go back at 12:45. 12:45. Okay, do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Do not do any investigation and receive no information. And I'll see you back after lunch. Plaintiff defense, do you think we're going to need some time after we come back from lunch, but before the jury? I'm just trying to decide what time we need to come back.
I think we have one issue that might take 5 minutes.
No, nothing from the defense.
Is this the famous 5 minutes that?
I don't think it's the famous 5 minutes. I think it's the real 5 minutes.
Can you advise us what it is?
Sure.
please, sir?
So right now?
Yes, please.
We filed a declaration last night of Dr. Kirkpatrick regarding 934 recordings. So I want to discuss that with the court.
That sounds like more than 5 minutes.
All right, then we'll do it.
It's
So
definitely more than 5 minutes. Sir.
we will be back at 12:30, which gives everybody about an hour and 6 minutes for lunch. So I will see everybody back at 11:30.
Judge,
Sorry, 12:30.
if I might, that issue may take more than 10 minutes. I'm just wondering if maybe that could wait till after the jury is through today.
Well, I don't know what the issue is, so I've got about 15 minutes time between the time we come back and the time the jury comes back. Okay, so 12:30.